Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to the Dreamerspro Podcast. And today, I got a lot of topics I want to get into for you guys. So I'm just going to sit back and take my time. If this is your first time checking out the Dreamerspro Podcast, the format is a little bit different. I take my time with this. I don't like to rush. I like to get into a range of different topics that I think the viewers are going to be interested in. And today, I got a pretty good lineup for you guys. So let me just go ahead and give you the rundown of what we're going to be talking about today. In this video, we're going to be talking about, is there pressure on Doc Rivers to really get this thing done with the Clippers? Because I've been hearing a lot of you guys sort of lament the fact that you're expecting a lot out of Doc Rivers, and I'm going to be addressing some of that in this video. Also, I'm going to be touching on Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and whether or not they're going to make it work in the playoffs this season in the Eastern Conference. And finally, I'm going to be talking about the legacy of James Harden and Russell Westbrook going into these playoffs, because I think they have a lot they have a lot on the line going into these playoffs. So I got a lot that I want to get into. So I want you guys to just go ahead and sit back and enjoy the show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 5,000 subs as soon as possible. So please make sure you support the channel. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. So let's get straight into it. And I'm going to be starting off with Doc Rivers and the Clippers. So we all know who Doc Rivers is. He's been coaching for quite a while now, well over 10 years in the NBA. And if you look at his coaching record, Doc Rivers has won 938 wins. He has 938 wins and 678 losses. Now, prior to him, winning his first championship, he started his coaching career with the Orlando Magic in 1990, in the 1990-2000 season, and they finished fourth. The next year, they finished fourth. The first year he started coaching, he missed the playoffs. Then subsequent years, he lost in the first round 3 times in a row. Then in 2003, 2004, he actually got fired by the Orlando Magic, believe it or not. Doc Rivers, yes, he got fired. And then he went over to he went over to start coaching the Boston Celtics, okay? In his first season with the Boston Celtics, this was in 2004, 2005, he lost in the first round. The next 2 seasons, they finished 3rd in the Atlantic Division and 5th in the Atlantic Division, and they missed the playoffs those 2 seasons. So if you look at the first, let's say, 9 years of his coaching career, they weren't really stellar. There wasn't much to talk about. But then what happened in the 2007-2008 season, their luck changed, and they did have Paul Pierce, who was sort of a lone man, just a one-man army. But what happened? Their fortunes changed when Kevin Garnett's, the big tickets contract expired with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he had to make a decision. He decided that he was trying to figure out, did he want to continue to play for the Minnesota Timberwolves because that was the team that drafted him, or should he go play with the Boston Celtics, where he had this opportunity to go play with Paul Pierce? And he ended up deciding that he wanted to go play with Paul Pierce, and just like that, Doc Rivers acquired Kevin Garnett, who had already won a regular season MVP, and then they brought in an amazing shooting guard in Ray Allen, who was also a perennial All-Star. And in that season, the 2007-2008 season, they won the NBA championship. I mean, the first season they got together, I think they won something like they won 66 games and had 12 losses. Now, if you think about the turnaround, the year before, Doc Rivers' team had 24 wins and 58 losses. So you can see the turnaround. And I think it had a lot to do with talent, to be honest. I mean, you have KG, you have Paul Pierce, and you have Ray Allen with Rajon Rondo and Kendrick Perkins and all these other guys, and Tony Allen and all of these guys. You're going to have a good shot at winning, and that's what he did. So the first time he had some real talent, he won. Now, it's fair to say that when he was coaching in Orlando, I think he had Tracy McGrady with him, but Tracy McGrady, I mean, if you look at Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, that's just way more talent, and he was able to win. The following season, though, Doc Rivers lost in the conference finals. Then his team went back to the NBA Finals and lost to the Los Angeles Lakers when the Lakers got payback with Kobe. And actually in 2007-2008 season, it was the Lakers that Doc Rivers won his first championship with. So what happened? He coached there for a number more seasons, then kept on losing the conference finals, conference semifinals. Then he eventually moved on to the Los Angeles Clippers. And at the time, when he moved on to the Clippers, they were Clip City because they had Chris Paul, they had Blake Griffin, they had DeAndre Jordan, they had Caron Butler. You guys remember that. I mean, it was electrifying basketball. That's when Blake Griffin was doing these insane dunks. I mean, you guys saw it. It was unbelievable. They used to call it Clip City, and they were like it was like a highlight arena. They were just getting all these amazing dunks, but they weren't quite winning. They were either losing in the first round or losing in the conference finals. And in 2000 to 2017, 2018 season, they actually missed the playoffs under Doc Rivers' coaching, and they finished with a 42-40 record. Now, granted, they didn't have the talent. Then last season, something amazing happened with a team with a bunch of Rough Riders. They ended up going 48-34, and they lost in the first round to the Golden State Warriors, who would eventually go on to be the NBA champions. And Doc Rivers said, of all the teams he coached, that's the group that he was the most proud of, because they didn't have an all-star. It was just a bunch of role players that played really hard that took the Golden State Warriors to 6 games. And you guys remember Patrick Beverley, trash talking Kevin Durant and going at him. I mean, eventually KD just showed them what's what. I think he dropped like 50 points in one of those games. But, he showed that the team showed that they had a nucleus of really, really good players and really, gritty, tough players. So going into this season, the Clippers were in real serious contention for, to land Kawhi Leonard. And we all know Kawhi Leonard was fresh off of an NBA championship, and they had been scouting him all throughout the season. There'd been stories that a lot of Clippers representatives had been going to Toronto Raptors games, watching Kawhi Leonard play, sort of letting him know that we are interested in you. So they ended up landing him, and all of a sudden the championship expectations changed, because they were like a team that I think was the 8th seed was able to take the then Golden State Warriors to 6 games, and now you acquired the Finals MVP. A lot of people were picking them to, be one of the top teams in the Western Conference. But then when they got Paul George, they were like, no, this team is the favorite. And I think that it puts a lot of pressure on Doc Rivers to really deliver. Now, it's fair to say that the Clippers have had some injuries all throughout the season. And, there have been some players in and out of the lineup. But nevertheless, they've been able to maintain the number 2 record in the Western Conference with a 44-20 record. So with all of the players missing games, with Paul George being in and out of the lineup, Patrick Beverley being in and out of the lineup, Kawhi Leonard doing his load management, they still maintain the 2nd record in the NBA, in the Western Conference, and the team that has the number 1 record in the Western Conference, who a lot of people see as the biggest threat to the Clippers making it out of the Western Conference, is the Los Angeles Lakers. They've beaten them 2 out of 3 times. So Doc Rivers has shown that his team can play well against the best competition in the league, and I think they beat a tremendous amount of 500+ teams. So, he's been managing the team very well, but now it's time to see that, to see can he deliver, because now it's no longer a question of not having the talent. Maybe last season, if he had more talented players, they could have possibly beaten the Golden State Warriors in the first round. But now he has the talent. He does have a Finals MVP on his team. He does have a perennial All-Star and one of the best two-way players in all of basketball, and Paul George on his team. So now I think he has no excuse, to not take his team to the NBA Finals. I mean, the last time he was in the NBA Finals was in 2009, 2010. So we're talking about, almost 10 years ago. So I think there's going to be pressure on him, and I noticed I've been getting a lot of comments, from some of the followers in the comment section saying, hey, man, what about Doc? Doc needs to deliver. Doc needs to deliver. He needs to come through. He needs to come through. He has the talent. And you know what? You guys are right. He does need to deliver, and he has all the talent in place to do so. So I think he's going to be under some pressure. I mean, Steve Ballmer, the team owner, is one of these guys that, he swings for the fence, and he wants to win. He wants to win, and he's made it known that he wants to win. So I think Doc Rivers needs to deliver in these playoffs. So I think that I needed to address that for some of the people in the comment section who've been talking about this, who've expressed some concerns about it. So that portion of the video was for you guys. So with that being said, let's move on to the next topic, which is we're going to be talking about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. All right. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers have been sort of underachievers this season. They have a lot of talent, but they've been underachieving. Going into this season, if you were told that the Philadelphia 76ers would be the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference with a 39-26 record behind the Indiana Pacers and the Miami Heat, I think a lot of you guys would have been surprised. I mean, I'm certainly surprised at the fact that this is the record that they have. But I think the Philadelphia 76ers have a lot of issues, okay? And I think one of their issues is, apart from the fact of injuries, because, for example, Joel Embiid has only played 44 of the available 62 games. So I think injuries play a role. But apart from the fact of injuries, I think the Philadelphia 76ers have some issues with maturity. And I think the maturity of their best players, okay? Excuse me, if we're going to focus on Joel Embiid, let's talk about Joel Embiid for a second. Joel Embiid is averaging 23.4 points a game, 11.8 rebounds, and 3.1 assists. He's shooting 47% from the field, 35% from the three-point line, 81% from the free throw line, and getting you 1.3 blocks and a steal a game. But that's not really the question here, because Joel Embiid has been shown to be a great NBA player. The problem with Joel Embiid is, number one, his maturity and his level of consistency. Last season, Joel Embiid scored 27.5 points a game, shot 48% from the field, shot 80% from the free throw line, got you 13.6 rebounds, 0.7 steals, and 1.9 blocks. So almost all of his numbers are down, okay? Almost all of his numbers are down. And he played 64 games of the available 82 games last season. The problem with Joel Embiid is that Joel Embiid is not mature, and Joel Embiid sees himself he thinks more of himself than actually what he really is. Now, I think that may sound harsh, but I think at times all of us need to have, a dose of reality injected into us. For example, we as a YouTube channel, we have a channel of 4,000 plus subscribers. But if I walk around like I'm Stephen A. Smith or like I'm ESPN, then I'm delusional. We don't have that type of success. It's something we're working towards. So it should keep you humble. It should keep you hungry, and it should keep you focused that, listen, there are people that are ahead of you. There are people that are more accomplished than you, and you got a lot of work to do. There's no resting on, your laurels and just saying, okay, I've arrived there because, hey, I have a few thousand subscribers and people are watching. No. You haven't gotten there yet. And I get this sense that Joel Embiid feels like he's gotten there. You see him go out there and have a good game and say, oh, that's why I'm the best player in the league. You're not the best player in the league. That is that shows no self-awareness, to me. It shows that you're not really aware of yourself. Okay, if you're the best player, what happened to LeBron James? What happened to Kawhi? What happened to AD? What happened to Kevin Durant? Like, what happened to Stephen Curry? You better than these guys? No, you're not. I mean, it's one thing to pump yourself up, but that's something you keep inside your heart, man. To come out there and say, I'm the best player in the league, shows you that the way that Joel Embiid thinks is not very mature. Now, if we move over to Ben Simmons, who is an all-world talent, a very talented player, especially on the defensive end, the way he sees the court, a talented passer, has tremendous speed, quickness, and all of that. If we look at his numbers this season, he's averaging 16.7 points, shooting 58.5% from the field, which is a higher percentage than Joel Embiid. I want you guys to just put that in your mind for a second, that Ben Simmons shoots a higher field goal percentage than Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid is a center. Anyway, he shoots 33% from the three-point line, but he's attempted, I think, 1 or 2 3-pointers this season. He shoots 62% from the free throw line. He's getting you two steals a game and 0.6 in blocks. Now, what's the issue with Ben Simmons? You may look at these numbers and say, these are pretty good numbers. The problem is him as well. His scoring output went down from last season. His rebounding went down from last season. His steals are up, and his assists are up. What that shows me is a level he's inconsistent. Okay, What's been the MO on Ben Simmons? The story has been Ben Simmons does not have a jump shot. Now, granted, he's been playing for 3 seasons, so let's cut him some slack. He's only 23 years old, about to be 24 years old in a few days. So he has age on his side. Excuse the kids outside. I can't. Those are some neighbors' kids. I can't go over there and tell them to stop screaming. So excuse that. The problem is, though, Ben Simmons seems to refuse to develop a perimeter shot. In the NBA, in today's NBA, you need to be able to shoot. You just need to be able to shoot. There's no 2 ways around it. You need to be able to shoot. It's just that simple. It's tantamount to a business owner that doesn't know any accounting. You can't do business if you don't know basic accounting. You just can't, because you're a liability onto yourself. It's not even, forget about the business itself. You're a liability onto yourself, and you then need to start relying on other people. You don't need to perfect accounting, but you need to have a basic understanding of it. Ben Simmons does not need to be Stephen Curry. He does not need to be Klay Thompson, but he needs to be a respectable shooter. He refuses to shoot, and what does that do? It then creates spacing issues on the court, because there's no spacing with him on the court. And I think that's why they said they're moving him down to the power forward spot. Now, if I go back to Joel Embiid, the fact that Joel Embiid, who is 7 foot tall, 280 pounds, and is shooting 47% from the field, and Ben Simmons shoots a higher percentage, already shows you a problem with with Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid needs to get more of his shots from the paint, because you can't guard him. He's very talented. He has great footwork. It's not like as if you can neutralize him in the paint, and he can do most of his damage from the paint. But for whatever reason, Joel Embiid seems to be preoccupied with shooting threes. Now, maybe he's thinking, well, my co-star can shoot threes, so maybe I need to shoot threes. That could possibly be it. But there's no reason for him to be shooting threes. If anything, get more three-point shooters, surround him with more three-point shooters, but there's no good reason for Joel Embiid to not be playing out of the post. And these are some of the reasons why I think this is a very problematic team and is a very problematic pairing. And I don't see it working. I just don't see it working. Maybe Philadelphia 76ers fans do. I don't see it working because they have too many issues. The roles on this team aren't even well defined. I think their best player is a bit delusional because he sees himself in a higher light than he actually is. Now, if you want to say you're the best player in the NBA, you need to go out there and prove that, man. I said it in a video not too long ago. If we all use our mouths to talk, we could all be millionaires, we could all be billionaires, but you actually have to go out there and get the work done. And I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm ranting, but I got to call it like it is, man. So I think that these guys have a lot to prove, and they need to get their acts together because now, granted, they're young. They've only been Joel Embiid has been in the league for 3 to 4 years. Same thing with Ben Simmons. But I think as time goes on, if they don't get their act together, they're going to have to probably move them apart. So that's how I feel about these two players. Now, let's move on to my final topic with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Now, James Harden and Russell Westbrook got a lot riding on these playoffs. Okay, James Harden has been a regular season MVP winner in 2018. He's been an 8-time All-Star. He's been on 6 All-NBA teams. He's been an NBA Sixth Man of the Year. He's led the league in scoring 2 times, and he's led the league in assists in 2017. Okay, this season, James Harden is averaging 34.4 points a game, 6.4 rebounds, and 7.4 assists. So these are sensational numbers. He's played 61 of the available 62 games, so he's been an Iron Man. He's been there. He's shooting 43.5% from the field, 35% from the three, 86% from the free throw line, and getting you 1.7 steals and 0.9 in blocks. And he's improved in his defense. So James Harden is putting up some fantastic numbers. If we look at his running mate, Russell Westbrook is also a regular season MVP in 2017. He's a 9-time All-Star. He's been a 2-time All-Star Game MVP. He's been on 7 All-NBA teams. He led the league in scoring 2 times, and he led the league in assists twice. Okay, one could argue that Russell Westbrook has had an even better career than James Harden. He's averaging 27.5 points a game this season, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. He's shooting 47% from the field, which is really good. He's improved his field goal percentage. He's shooting 25% from the three, so he's not a good three-point shooter. He's hitting 77% of his free throws, and he's getting you 1.7 steals a game. But that's not really what I'm getting at. We all know that these two players are extremely, extremely talented, and they're going to be all-time greats. But James Harden is playing with a regular season MVP winner in his prime, and Russell Westbrook is playing with a regular season MVP winner. Now, if we look at the Houston Rockets' current standing in the NBA, they're at the 6th seed in the Western Conference with a 24 record. Now, the player that Russell Westbrook is replacing in Chris Paul in the Oklahoma City have a higher record than the Houston Rockets. They're at the number 5 seed. Just think about that for a second. Chris Paul, who's much older than these two guys, who was sent to another team that most people didn't even think was going to make the playoffs, has a better record than the Houston Rockets that have 2 regular season MVP winners. And I think that there's a lot of pressure on these guys for their legacy. James Harden is playing alongside another regular season MVP winner who's averaged a triple-double, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row. James Harden has been putting up video game numbers. But these guys need to make it work in the playoffs this year. They need to. And I think that if the Houston Rockets can't pull it together this season, it's going to hurt their legacy. It's not going to be like, oh, LeBron James will make LeBron's already won titles. Kawhi's already won titles, other players have won NBA titles. Giannis has already won a regular season MVP, but he has pressure on him. He needs to make the finals too. But these guys have had a tremendous amount of success. And look at their talent. Are there 2 players on the Oklahoma City Thunder that are as talented as Russell Westbrook and James Harden, or even the Utah Jazz who have a better record, or even the Denver Nuggets? I don't think so. But these guys need to deliver, and I think these playoffs are going to say a lot about James Harden and Russell Westbrook and their championship pedigree. They need to deliver. Now, I don't pick them coming out of the Western Conference, so I don't know what it's going to do to their legacy if they don't make it to the NBA Finals this season, but they need to. I mean, it is serious that if these guys don't find a way to win together, I think Daryl Morey, who some people consider to be a basketball genius, others like Charles Barkley don't, I think they're going to be some big questions if these guys don't figure out a way to make it happen. And I think this is an important season for James Harden. If they win the championship, then kudos to the both of them. It's going to work wonders for their legacy. But if they get bounced early in the playoffs this year, I don't think it's going to be a good look for the Houston Rockets. So I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on the Houston Rockets this season. So what I want to know from you guys is, do you think that Doc Rivers is under a lot of pressure and he needs to deliver this season? What are your thoughts on Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons? Do you think these guys are going to make it work with the Philadelphia 76ers? And do you think that if James Harden and Russell Westbrook don't make it work this season, is really, really going to, be a stain on their legacy? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day. Peace.